Welcome to My Wild Magic with me, your host, Adrienne Cobb. Join me on a journey back home to your truest self in this inspiring, enlightening, and entertaining show. After a near-death experience in a car crash at 15 years old, I made a choice to stay and brought back with me 3 simple truths that I found from the other side. Love is all there is. Our time is over here quicker than we think, and we all have a purpose, a soul blueprint to fulfill. On this show, you will find a higher purpose, a creative expression, and unique soul attributes that you can bring forth into this world. Stay tuned with me for the next hour and find your higher purpose on My Wild Magic, starting now. Welcome, everyone. I am Adrienne with My Wild Magic with Adrienne. And today we have as our special guest on Live, Unplugged, and Defying Gravity is Emily Matweow, as she shares intimate, inspiring, true life stories of how she leaped into the wild abyss of the unknown, defying gravity, and took flight to fulfill her own soul blueprint after healing an incurable disease and becoming a medium, clairvoyant, and an empath. I found Emily after researching the different types of intuition online, and I came across her article, Meet the 11 Clairs. It was really a cute article, actually, the way she wrote it. And I was blown away at the accuracy to how she described the 11 different forms of clairvoyance and how they all affect our life. A lot of ones that even if you are intuitive like I am, I didn't even know how to name some of these. So I've learned a lot from her. I've done a session with her. It was really remarkable. I loved working with her. You can check her out at her website, which we're going to give you in just a moment. So join me in Emma. She shares about her journey and we will begin. So, hey, Emily, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. And you're out in Canada, right?
Pardon me?
You're out in Canada, right?
I am.
Canada. Out somewhere. Yeah, it looks like your camera might be freezing up a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Like you had it sounds like you had an incurable disease, and can you tell us a little bit about that and what led you onto this path of opening you up to be a medium?
I actually think I had intuitive abilities that were knocking at my door and giving me information well before the illness happened. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't seem like it was actually my illness. It was somebody else's that I took into my body so I could fix it.
Wow.
It was a very interesting. I wasn't aware of that at the time. It felt pretty real. It was very real, but I reviewed what I did that helped me beat the odds that all the doctors were giving me. And there's a pattern that actually can be applied to most things in life that act to limit or block us. And we've got things like little things and big things. Just depends on how our day is going.
Okay. And so you were saying there's kind of a formula that helps to kind of clear things out. And what's the formula that you recommend?
I wish
simply put in a nutshell, if you could just crack that code for us, that would be great.
Just a minute, let me find the magic wand.
Exactly.
I used to actually have one, had little rainbow sparkles and things in it. I don't have that anymore. It didn't do what I need to do. So for me, it's exceptionally important that your energy fields that exist around you are much greater distance than most of us. Those have to be clear. It's a little bit like if there are other things in the way. My favorite example is, have you ever owned a glass top coffee table? You never want to have that coffee table in the sunlight because you can see all the flecks of dust on it. And when you dust that coffee table, you watch more dust come right in behind the dust cloth as you clean the existing dust off. Well,
Yeah.
okay. So you want all those dust flecks out of your energy fields because they all act as little speed bumps and diversions with a kind of energy that tells us things. Call it intuition. Intuition gives us information in a variety of routes. But if it's blocked, if there's interference, like all that dust on the glass top coffee table, maybe the information doesn't come through clearly to us. And if we have visitors, and they could be good, bad, and there's all sorts of visitors, spiritual visitors, well, that adds another complication. And so if they're, go ahead.
And so spiritual visitors, you mean sort of like entities, elemental life force energies, discarnates, just
could be angels.
Spirit. Okay, it could be angels too. Okay.
Could be angels. It could be spirits of somebody who has loved you, who's crossed over, who's no longer alive here on earth. It could be guys and the bad guys and the mischievous guys. But the good guys all seem to know they can't hang out in our energy fields for very long because it upsets us. It starts to disturb our balance. So they can come in for a while, but they can't stay close at hand, or they can observe from a distance or communicate from a distance. The bad guys don't really care about the rules. They think they have their own rules. And the more they can rock your boat, often the happier that makes them. So they can be very much, just to keep it really gentle and simple and not go, kind of crazy, because we're in a duality or polarity existence, if you will. So for every good thing, we have an opposite bad thing. For every bit of light, there is dark. That's where the yin yang comes in. We've got a white tear and a dark tear. And the white drop in the black tear or the dark tear can simply be referred to as compassion. And the dark tear or the dark drop in the white tear can be referred to as selfishness. I can't be for others if I can't be for myself. So sometimes I need to do for me. When I go out to clear.
Super powerful message there to be able to do for yourself. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes.
I mean, especially I think as empaths, we do have a tendency to want to do for others more than we do for ourselves. And that does imbalance our yin yang on that. And I want to go back just for a moment, what you were saying also about even angels, anything that we might think of as good, if it's something that's in somebody's energy field a lot, it's actually not. Maybe it creates a codependency or something. But, I notice at times, sometimes I will get hyper vigilant if I'm praying for something or someone. And I have found over time, you're right, it's actually not that healthy. Or I've had people pray or bless me, as well. And sometimes it interferes with my energy after a while. So I totally get what you're saying. And it emotionally seems like it convolutes everything. I just never thought about it with angels and stuff. That's just like fascinating though.
They're a slightly different energy, but we came here to learn lessons and gain experiences. It is a privilege that we got to incarnate as humans and not other life forms or, tree stumps or rocks or piles of dirt. So as such, it's really difficult to learn lessons and gain experiences if you're always trying to put the responsibility and the weight of that effort onto someone else. So it's really great that we have support, and we have unlimited support if we allow it. And it's great that many of our visitors give us guidance to kind of nudge us along, or maybe give us something a little stronger than a nudge, but get us back on the path or help us, smarten up a little bit. But it's still got to be me for me and you for you. Yes, I love helping you and supporting others, but at the end of the day, I can't do for anybody. They're going to have to do for themselves. I can show you, I can teach you, I can hold your hand, but I can't make you. It's like the old, what is the adage? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Exactly. Yeah. And the Ascended Masters, one of the things that they're known for is the Ascended Masters being, Jesus, Buddha, Kuan Yin, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Krishna, that whole line of beings, when they teach, what they do is they are excellent teachers, right? But they always want to teach you how to fish. They don't ever want to fish for you because they know that it's not empowering,
Mm-hmm.
for their own enlightenment, for a person's own enlightenment. So that's true. That takes a lot of, I think for any of us out there who have a little bit more of that codependent need to be needed, it's a lot of times hard to let go, whether it's parents with children or people with pets or whatever we do, partners, whatever. It's sometimes, especially if you have a caretaking nature, I find it can be a little difficult to step it back a notch and let it roll out,
I agree.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. So with your, with the illness that you said you had, and this is interesting because I do find this can be the case a lot of times when you start running other things through, we can run other things through our body, whether it's conscious or not. Right. And then we have to process through that. But that was kind of a fascinating story that you were going into.
it was the biggest deal in my world, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
if I kind of roll it back a little bit, everything is energy. And we can glibly say that as people who work with energy or think we understand it. And we often say, well, my particles are put together so I look like a person instead of a chair or instead of a tree. But it's a little bit different than that. Your words are energy. Your thoughts are energy. Your emotions are energy. I was thinking about this earlier today, and I thought, when I was in high school, a girlfriend of mine had a heartbreaking event in her life. Her dad, who was out walking the dog the night before, was killed by a hit and run driver. Then I went over to her home just to help. And while everybody was grieving and family was arriving, I could at least look after dishes and food service and just be that person, the extra set of hands and the eyes to do what was needed to be done behind the scenes. When I came home that night, I stood in the shower for a really, really long time trying to get clean. But we both know I wasn't dirty.
Mm-hmm.
But I had picked up the energy of all the grief and the sadness, and it weighed on my energy being like something that I needed to clean off. I needed to free myself from it.
Yeah.
I did that as many years later in my life. I had a high-speed collision with a moose, and the moose died and I didn't. But that night when I came home from emergency, I did the same thing again. I stood in the shower trying to get clean. I knew I wasn't dirty.
I know, right? Well, the energetics of our emotions is huge, but we're gonna hold that thought just for a minute. We're gonna go to a break really quick. Stay with us. I'm Adrienne. This is My Wild Magic with Adrienne, our guest, Emily Matweow, and we'll be back in just a minute. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I am Adrienne, your host on My Wild Magic with Adrienne, and I'm here with Emily Matweow. If you want to check anything more out about the work that I offer, you can go to www.mywildmagic.com. Check out your Tribes of Light with the free quiz I offer there. And Emily, is there a way that people can reach you as well if they wanted to maybe do a reading or check out their intuition or their energy field?
My website is emily.org. EMILY.org.
That is simple. Wow. Emily.org. Okay. So check out Emily's work. I've done a session with her. It was absolutely fabulous. She kind of multitasked actually with a couple other people with me, but it was very, very helpful. And, Emily, I noticed after our session actually that the work continued the beings, the light beings, the angels, whatever it is working with you, I found continued to keep bringing a great sense of peace and understanding into my energy field, even for quite a few weeks after our session. So just want to tell you, thank you. Yeah. So
Well, you're
can't say
welcome.
enough high things
You know,
about it.
we call ourselves energy healers, but that feels like I'm being very out of integrity to say that. I don't heal you. What I do is, and now I'm going to go all woo-woo on you, I actually have a little conversation with you, spirit to spirit. I can remove your blocks, but I teach you or point out to you what you've forgotten so that you can do for yourself. And so I don't have to be around for those weeks afterwards that you were feeling the results, because what you had received was a little bit of a reminder. It's like, oh yeah, I really do know how to do that. Thanks for showing me the way.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was and it was so gentle too. I found that your work was very truthful, very clean and clear, very gentle, but yet very deep and powerful at the same time. Yeah. And then what kind of work do you offer? It looked like you offered a few different things. And I know you have a book coming out as well, which will also be on your website.
I just got that loaded up about an hour ago.
Okay.
little ebook. Sure, it's there. I have a number of things ways that people can work with me. The easy one is called the test drive. So it's got a modest price on it, which if we discover that we can actually work together, then I refund the money. But rather than giving you a free session, and I get all kinds of tire kickers who really never want to work with me, the serious people will pay the money. And if we get on well, I'm only too pleased to make that a free session by deducting it from your next one. And there's a number of ways. You can just choose to call me when you feel like there's something blocking or going on. Or you can say, no, I got this thing I've been trying to repair or fix for a long time, and I think it will require a longer period of time for me to work with you. And you can just decide. You move back and forth however is most comfortable for you, time-wise or finances.
And then yeah, and I mean, do you most work with people kind of on a higher self level, a soul level? Do you do a little bit of physical work with them? Is it kind of a combination, like on all different bodies that you tend to operate?
I began my training as a craniosacral therapist.
Ah, I love
So
that.
I did a
Yeah.
lot of craniosacral therapy. I did the somato emotion release training and the pediatrics. And then I got really tired. This was, more than 20 years ago, of responding to the question, cranial what? I certified as a Reiki master, so I could go up. Have you heard of Reiki? It's like, yeah. I said, it's kind of the same thing. I might or might not touch you because I'm one of those practitioners who could work off body, which was really great. If you'd had a serious injury, I didn't have to put my hand, even the light touch, to heal you and help you. Well, from that, I went through some more health challenges of my own. I think these were of my own. And in the process, I discovered all kinds of other healing modalities. So I'm like a sponge, feed me, give me data. I studied many. Some I kept, some were not based in love, and I can't work from a place of fear. I was a good learning for me. And as I worked my way through all this stuff, my intuitive abilities sort of started to do the happy dance, going, well, honey, it's about time. We've been waiting for this. We've been shaking your cage for many, many years. And, some of the courses, I spend most of them in tears because I was so overwhelmed by the strength and the acuity with which some of these intuitive abilities were presenting. And everybody in class is struggling to get this, that, and the other figured. And it was just like I had the magic key to open the door, and everything said, well, it's your turn. So then all I had to do was decide how I was going to arrange things, what worked best for me, what I was most comfortable with, what I wanted to develop more. And that's going to be a lifelong process because I don't have everything at the place where I want all those skills to be.
Yeah.
But
So
each of us, when people present, they all ask for different things. So I can do body work on you from a distance. Isn't that cool? That almost speaks to, the clairtaction intuitive skill that I identify, which is not the clairtangency, which most people know as psychometry. I can go in and touch you and help you physically from a distance because it's just a moving the energy parts around.
it's beautiful. It's a beautiful gift. Yeah. And I've seen you in action with several of those things, and it's quite meaningful, quite yeah, very graceful process. And so when we were going into the break, coming back to the energy work, you were telling me about, that yes, you can go into a room, like let's say somebody who's grieving or somebody who's going through stuff, pick up that big cloud of energy, go home, try to wash it off in the shower. But then you were telling about a story that was actually quite loving, that was just makes energy very palpable. But I don't know if you could just share that story with your mom. And
it was so nice. I was raised watching the Carol Burnett show. I date myself quite quickly when I say this. And one of the actors on the show, what was Harvey Korman and Tim Conway, had many skits that they did. And I took my mom for her 80th birthday to see Tim Conway. He was in concert. And we had seats right up close to the front. And as the show, proceeded to go through many of the skits that we had watched over the years, you could feel the love in that entire concert hall. And there was grandparents there with their kids and their children's children. And some of those children were way too young to have ever seen the show on TV the number of times I had. But the love in that auditorium was palpable. It was very real. And could you just imagine being a performer on stage with a house full of people admiring you and loving you and saying thank you? Wow.
yeah, it's beautiful to share that gift. I remember, I think I've had an experience like that too, and it was Florence and the Machine. So a little bit different than the Carol Burnett show, but Florence and the Machine, and it was a concert here in the Portland area. And man, when she got up on stage, her whole thing was about the love. You know what I mean? And also Sarah McLachlan too has a lot of that angelic, loving presence to her. And yeah, so it is amazing just to sit in the presence of someone who carries that much energy and just exudes it out. It literally is like a blessing to other people, maybe coming from their own soul or angels that move through them or whatever, but that's beautiful. Yeah. So what, so with that, how do you think it affects, like we saw that when you left the, when your friend's dad died, you had that energy where you just kind of wanted to wash it off. I'm curious, when you left the Tim Conway show, I mean, how do you think that affected your energy? Kind of looking back on it now, how did it affect your energy field differently than the other ones when you observe it on the inner levels, when you're viewed with love?
I had such a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
It was like I was wrapped in the wings of angels. It was just beautiful.
Yeah.
I use that analogy because, when I was still doing craniosacral therapy, in person in a practitioner's office, I had a new patient one night, and she was obviously really anxious and really nervous, but somebody had told her she should come and see Em, would help. And as we sat, we're going through the pre-session, information gathering and just chatting and trying to get a comfort zone in a sense, I actually saw a pair of angels come in and wrap their wings around her, just like, ooh. And I sat there and I watched this and I'm thinking, well, this is very cool. I know I believe in angels, but I wasn't sure that I believed they had wings. That might have just been Michelangelo's rendering of an angel. But I saw them with wings and they wrapped them where it was in this little cocoon of safety and love. And we had our session. She laid down the craniosacral table and she left. And she was much more relaxed and calm and everything was good. But I'm like the dog with the chew toy now. I first question, then I can have a pair of angels. And it's like, well, yes, little grasshopper, of course you can have a pair of angels. It's like, well, anytime I want. And then, well, of course, there's as many pairs of angels as there are people that need them.
Oh, God, this
So,
makes me want to cry. That's just so beautiful.
so I took that, and what I've done with it since is every time I hear of a catastrophe in the world, because we're having landslides, tidal waves, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, big bad things, I send pairs of angels to all the people who have been traumatized. So that's first responders, that's people who've been in the middle of the disaster. There's so many reasons. I could be in a grocery store lineup, and I often am. And sometimes somebody just gets all snarky on you. It's like, I'm just standing there. I'm not doing anything. Why would you be mean to me? So I just sit there and go, okay, this person needs a pair of angels. Please, I ask that the angels help them get whatever it is they need to have kind of a grumpy day.
So we're gonna take a break right there. Actually, we're gonna go to a break, but we're gonna come right back. I'm like enthralled with these like pairs of angels. We're gonna send it out to the whole audience in just a minute. Okay, all the listeners.
We are.
Okay? So we'll be back in just a moment. We're gonna bless everybody with angels. Welcome. I am Adrienne Cobb, your host today, and you are on My Wild Magic with Adrienne, and our guest is Emily Matweow, and we are live on Transformation Talk Radio, which I love. There's a lot of other programs I'd encourage people to check out on Transformation Talk Radio. And if you want to get in touch with Emily, her contact is super easy. It's Emily, EMILY.org. Again, that's Emily.org. Okay, so we were just talking about how you can actually bless people with a pair of angels. And so if you're just tuning into the show, you tuned in at the right time, because we're fixing to do a major blessing for everybody. So Emily, let's continue with what you were saying. I'm like, I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm like,
well, there's this person in a grocery store lineup ahead of me, and she's been all snarky, just downright grumpy and mean, and I didn't do anything. I'm just standing there with my buggy waiting to check out. Well, as the line moves closer and closer to the cashier, all of a sudden, this person turns around and starts chatting at me and talking to me like I'm her long lost best friend.
And that's because you've been blessing her with a pair of angel wings, right? Or a pair of
well,
angels.
Because whatever it was that the angels did to help her feel safe and nurtured and calm and get what it was that she got it. And she knew she recognized of her own volition that she had been kind of nasty to me. And so in apology, she starts being very conversational and warm and friendly. And we're all like that. Sometimes we have things going on and we speak in ways that we wouldn't otherwise choose to. Where this just gives a person a chance to get regrounded and get back in touch with what's going on and be the beautiful person that they were here to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is great. And so really when it comes to this, really anybody can call this in. You can call,
yes,
you just say a pair of angels is the way it comes in, right? I'm calling forth a pair of angels for myself in this moment if I need it, or I'm calling it in for this person. So this is not just because, angels have their own free will, they have their own energy. And Emily's teaching us about a group of angels that I've never heard of before. So I'm super excited to always meet a new group of angels, but all of us have that divine right and access to the angelic kingdom when we choose to call them in. So Emily, what would you say to people who want to call them in for themselves or for somebody, a loved one or somebody at the grocery store or a catastrophe, disaster?
Right.
How do you say it?
I don't put a lot of fancy words with it. Sometimes I'll just say, can I have a pair of angels, please? I really feel like having somebody tuck me in tonight. Or I need pairs of angels to go and help everybody who's been involved in this disaster or catastrophe. So that's everybody from the victims to the first responders to the onlookers, because oftentimes the onlookers are more traumatized than the people who are experiencing whatever the disaster is.
Witness, yeah.
Everybody needs a pair of angels. And it seems that there are angels in the realms whose job is simply to swaddle us in their love and safety and help us calm ourselves and kind of manage whatever the speed bump was that just presented.
And then when Emily and I were on break, we were looking at maybe kind of what family those angels are in, because there's cherubs and there's essential angels and there's unknown angels and archangels and seraphim and Elohim. And so we were looking at it, she was saying that, they seem like they're like the lesser archangels, and so if you look at the angels, usually what happens, let's say with the archangels, is that they have their own temple. And in that temple, there's like a flame of light that holds the quality essence of that angel. Like, for instance, let's say Archangel Raphael is the green flame of divine healing. So within that temple of Archangel Raphael, there'll be a green flame. And a lot of times there'll be lesser archangels that come in. They absorb that flame, a comfort, love, whatever the quality essence of these different archangels are. Then they go out to humanity. And it sounds like, Emily, that's kind of what's happening, is it's these lesser angels that absorb the quality essence and then go and fold them. I'm just sort of making that up as I go along, but
you're allowed. I've just always sort of generically referred to them as angels of light.
Angels of light.
They're not any particular color of light, and they're not a subset of any specific archangel. They're just angels of light. They bring that pure, pristine, divine white light to wrap around us in much the same way that we will swaddle a baby. And it helps them to feel calm and nurtured and safe. That seems to be the effect of the light and the energy that these angels bring when they wrap their wings around us.
Okay, so let's do it. Let's call it in. Let's just bless all the listeners, whether you're in the moment now or you're listening to this podcast, YouTube video later.
Absolutely. Everybody gets a pair of angels. And I ask one more thing, that the pair of angels remain with you for 24 hours so that you get to really enjoy the shift or the difference that they can introduce to your world.
So let's just take a breath there for a moment and just breathe in and just notice feeling that pair of angels coming into your energy field, these angels of light, the pair of angels that are coming in on your behalf. And that they're there with you for the next 24 hours to really absorb that. Just
allow yourself to be comforted and soothed and calmed. It's something that in our crazy world, we adults rarely give ourselves a chance to do.
Yeah. And just sealing that with gratitude.
Very
I'm
essential.
so grateful to Emily bringing us these angels, and for the angels coming in. So grateful. So thank you for that. So the other big reason we're on the show today actually is through the years of your work, it sounds as though you have really identified better than anybody else I've seen out there, actually, the different types of clairs. And so could you describe, kind of how you came across it and what the clairs are?
Well, I decided quite a number of years ago. I started off thinking that my brother was the black sheep in the family. But as I grew up and I reviewed things with, great introspection and clarity, I realized that it wasn't him, it was me. I was the black sheep in the family. I got things in a way that other people didn't seem to. And a very important person to me explained that I was extremely clairsentient. And I went, oh, that's so cool. And then the second thing I said was, what is it? And the person said, well, that's knowing by feeling. And I said, yeah, no, that's still very cool. And she became very serious and said, why are you saying that? And I said, well, it means if there's a name for it, I'm not the first person and I'm not the only person. I'm not alone. I'm not just weird Emily. And she said, well, those are very good points. She said, however, the challenge for the clairsentient person is to be able to tell the difference between what they're feeling. If it belongs to them, it belongs to somebody else. Now you think about what goes on in the world. There's somebody who's just been served with divorce papers. They've got a call from the school telling them that their child's been rushed to emergency, that they've just been laid off or fired at work. there's all kinds of stuff going on, and this is really negative, bad energies that I pick up on. It's a tough one when I have to walk into a hospital, because it's like I'm aware of everybody who is unwell, who is dying, and who has recently died. And so, hospitals aren't very favorite to me, but I spent a couple of years after this person explained to me I was clairsentient, wandering around kind of giggling, going, oh, it's so cool. It's not my stuff. I'm actually okay. What I had been picking up on was everybody else's stuff, and I didn't know the difference. And my mom and dad couldn't tell me because they simply didn't know. And as I moved into still trying to figure out who I was and what was going on, and it certainly involved discovering my intuitive abilities and starting to embody them, people weren't really talking about it. And if you did, you got labeled woo-woo, witchy-poo just instantly. And somehow not credible. And that really bothered me, because I had a 30-year career in IT as a project manager, oil and gas. Like, I was not your average woo-woo, witchy-poo person. Well, I had this high-speed collision with a moose, and in order to recover from it, I had a lot of craniosacral therapy work done on me. And now we know why I kind of moved into craniosacral therapy as the first place. I began working with energies, and then my cranio said to me, oh, you're really good at this. And it's like, really? I'm just lying on your table. She says, oh, no, you're doing way more than lying on my table. And that began a journey that's been it's been coming up 30 years now. There's an overlap. Okay, so I'm not 400 years old. We call this a Venn diagram. So some of this was overlapping when I was still being a professional computer geek. Yeah. And nevertheless, I started to get really frustrated and annoyed because nobody was talking about our intuitive abilities. And I personally believe they were each born with a full functional set of them.
I do too. I do that. So we're right at that point. We need to take a break right here.
Okay.
And then we're going to come back and we're going to get into the Claire. So stay tuned. I am Adrienne. You're listening to My Wild Magic with Adrienne, our guest, Emily Matweow on Transformation Talk Radio. We'll be back in just a minute. Stay tuned, and we're going to get into the 11 different Claires. And if you have one yourself. Welcome. I am Adrienne with My Wild Magic with Adrienne on Transformation Talk Radio. And today we have Emily Matweow on with us, and you can reach her at emily.org. And we're fixing to have a really special reason as to why you can check her out on emily.org in just a minute for a super cool online kind of spreadsheet where you can actually do a 50 questionnaire to test on which of the different clairs and intuitions that you have and how to rate them. So Emily, can you tell us a little bit, go over the different type of clairs that you have really named super well, see if people recognize themselves in this, and then a little bit about your test, your quiz.
Okay. My favorite clair is clair knowing. It's called claircognizance. But basically, we've all had those moments where sometimes you just know. You can't defend it rationally. You can't explain it, but somewhere inside you, in your gut, in your heart, you just know. And the way we often know we've had those moments is because it's like, oh man, I knew and I should have done that, but I didn't do it. We've all had those moments where, man, I knew, well, you did, but you have to learn how to trust what you know. How do you tell the difference between your intuition talking to you and just noisy chatter of the ego or the rational mind? Yeah. Clairvoyance is the one that you mentioned at the beginning of the show, and it's the one I've heard of. But most people tend to think that clairvoyance is something like, oh, I'm going to read the future for you. I have a crystal ball, and I'm going to tell you, good, bad, or indifferent things about what you should be doing with your life. I understand clairvoyance to be so much more. Because I seem to be on the healer path, I will get future events if there's something about it that could present risk or harm for you, and that gives me the opportunity to shift it away from risk or harm. but I tend to see past events. So that would be events from past lifetimes. In full Technicolor surround sound, I get the full meal deal. I see aura. I see all kinds of things. And I see chakras. I mean, the list is quite, so the limit of what you can see is probably based solely upon your own belief system, because it's all possible to see everything. And if I could see the future, I'd probably have the winning lottery numbers, and I haven't figured out how to do that yet.
Yeah.
Clairaudience, many people claim to be clairaudient. They hear etheric music or ethereal music, the music of the angels, of the angelic realms. So clairaudience or clairaudio or hearing. Hear my guides or my spirits speak to me. They'll just tell me stuff. But for me, sometimes it's difficult to tell the difference between whether I've heard it or I just got to know it. It's a very fine line. But there are certainly times that I have heard quite clearly, and I'm aware that I'm hearing, and I'm the only one around who's hearing what I'm hearing. So cool. You may have deduced from this that it is not, of the 11 gifts, it's not my very strongest one. Some that are stronger than that. What have we got? Clairsent or clairsentency, smelling. I get to smell when there are visitors around, visitors or spirit traffic that are looking for assistance. And invariably, and more often than not, what they're asking for is to be shown to the light. For whatever reasons, they've become trapped in that place in between, either because they thought they could get some unfinished business completed, or because their loved ones hadn't given them permission to transition. And I do a tremendous amount of sending people to the light, but they announce themselves because they smell a little bit like a dead buffalo, or one of those very flowery, perfumed old ladies that comes in, or cigars. For some reason, they'll often smell like cigars for me.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I smell it. And it's like, who are you? What do you want? Do you present risk to me? And the answer is, no, I need your help. And so then we determine what it is. Sometimes I get to smell nice things, but not so often. Usually it's just the visitors that are showing up.
Yeah.
Clairtangency, which I referred to earlier, we tend to know as psychometry. Read or know what the vibration of an object is by feeling it or holding it. So I used to do, I call it Lifekey energy readings a long time ago, when everybody was driving around with car keys instead of all these remote control devices where they rarely had their keys anymore.
Yeah.
If it's a ring that you've worn on your hand all the time, or another piece of jewelry, or a set of keys, or an object that you've held a lot all the time, and there haven't been other people who've been holding it, is that really confusing? I can get a really good reading on it. And I've read for people who have items that they have inherited from grandparents, and they want to know, what's this a key for? What's this about? I used to volunteer at a zoo, and they were doing readings for Halloween, and the kids would stand up, they'd hold these rocks while they were in line. And then I was a gypsy who was going to read. And wouldn't you know, my line wasn't going anywhere, because instead of saying, "Oh, I see that you have a lot of candy in your future and it's going to be in great abundance," I was actually giving them a reading. But I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. I was picking up on those energies. There is another thing that we can discern or do with touch. So rather than reading the energies, we can literally, the way I might reach out with my hand to touch you or stroke the back of your head or your cheek, or as I learned I could do for a friend of mine who was having some very serious intestinal problems, and I just reached out and massaged her intestines. And I went, "Can you feel it?" She says, "Oh, it's so soothing. It's so nice."
Wow.
It's just about what you do with the energy, but nobody's speaking to that one.
And that one's clairtaction.
That's what I named it, was Clairtaction. I had to invent a name. So there's a whole.
Yeah. Now it's also, so clairtangency is more psychometry with objects, and
Exactly.
clairtaction is the ethereal, the energetic, the light body.
Me doing the
way.
touching. That's right.
Yeah.
It's
Got
my
it.
energy's doing the touching
Okay. Yeah.
and the
got it.
healing. So then we've got the clairgustance, knowing by taste. It's so cool. I used to think that everybody could cook. All you had to do was be able to read. If you could read the recipe, you could cook. Yeah, au contraire, not that easy. And people say, but nobody can repeat your recipes. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. It's never the same right twice. Because I seem to know. I look at a recipe, I look at what I've got on hand. I say, yeah, okay, and then we'll do stuff. And I look at what I feel like doing, and I seem to know what it's going to taste like. And it's so much fun, but it's really annoying to anybody who wants my recipe.
Yeah.
Because they don't get it and they sort of can't do it. Now, you've spoken a lot in this show about empathy and people being an empath. Claire, empathy is really just about emotion. So it's to feel the emotion that somebody is feeling. So if I told you a very sad story and you were moved, you would literally feel the sadness that I felt in an empathic sort of way. But we often have emotions are our own. And one of the rules of learning how to manage your own energy is we have emotions, but we must learn to not let the emotions have us. There is quite a difference between acknowledging like this, as opposed to letting that emotion be in the driver's seat and defining or determining how I'm acting and speaking and being. It's like, no, acknowledge it, allow it to wash over you, but don't let it define you or become a characteristic of you. Clair eloquence, as one might guess, has to do with communication. The easiest example is Sanskrit. There is great power in the sound of a Sanskrit word mantra. There is power in, what do we call them, performative verbs, for example, in our spoken language. A performative verb is one that in the very saying of it is the doing of it. So if I were to say something like, I hope this is going to happen, the minute I say I hope, I'm hoping. I'm not just telling you about hope, I'm doing it. I believe is the same one, but if you were to Google performative verbs, you'll find there's a very short list of them. There's not that many verbs in which the saying is the doing. So the words that you use and how you use them is very important. When you say om, do you say om or do you go aum, A-U-M or O-M? My voice got all crackly there, but which om is it? And there's very different purposes for those ohms.
So we are coming to a close to the show. And so she's made it pretty much, I mean, Claire Essence is the last one, the intuitive embodiment. But if people wanted to take a test, how would they get in touch with you to take the test to see answer the 50 questions and see which of the Claire Essences that they're mostly intuitive to?
I actually haven't put that test up on my website, but I promise you sometime tomorrow I will do that. If you want more than just the test, there is a link to the test in the book. Buy the book. And I'm not trying to hustle you because you might not have any interest in the book.
Yeah, and the book is actually on your website.
The book is on my website. The book is on Etsy, and the book is on Amazon.
And the name of your book is?
Intuition, All 11 Kinds.
Intuition, All 11 Kinds by Emily Matweow. And you can go to emily.org, EMILY, to her website and buy the book directly there. So thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a delight. I love my little angel wings. I hope everybody else does too. And yeah, thank you so much.
This was great fun.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in to My Wild Magic with me, your host, Adrienne Cobb. Each one of us has a soul purpose on this earth and a higher purpose full of creative expression and unique soul attributes. Make sure to tune in next week on transformationtalkradio.com to continue your journey home to your truest self and pursue the path of unconditional self-love. If you would like to learn more about me, visit mywildmagic.com. Again, that's mywildmagic.com.